Sometimes the biggest family secret is revealed by the one person too young to know it is a secret. The auditorium at Lincoln Elementary School glowed beneath warm afternoon lights as proud parents filled row after row of seats. Teachers moved quietly between aisles, organizing programs and helping students prepare for Family Appreciation Day. The annual event was one of the most beloved traditions in the district. Every child had been asked to write an essay about the person they admired most at home. Most parents expected simple stories about bedtime routines, family vacations, and favorite memories. No one expected a single 10-year-old boy to leave an entire room speechless. Near the center of the audience sat Nathaniel Brooks, the 42-year-old CEO of Brooks Capital. His tailored navy suit looked slightly out of place among the casual sweaters and jackets worn by most parents. Yet he seemed completely comfortable. Over the years, Nathaniel had donated millions of dollars to local schools throughout Chicago. The principal had personally invited him to attend the event after funding a new literacy program. Nathaniel rarely accepted invitations like this, but something about supporting children's education always felt important to him. As students began presenting their essays, the audience responded with smiles and laughter. One little girl spoke about her grandmother teaching her how to bake cookies. Another boy described fishing trips with his father every summer. The room filled with warmth. Nathaniel listened politely, occasionally applauding along with everyone else. Then a teacher stepped onto the stage and adjusted the microphone. Our next student is Jordan Reed. A small boy with dark curly hair and bright intelligent eyes walked confidently toward the podium. He wore a neatly pressed blue shirt and carried several folded sheets of paper. There was something about him that immediately drew attention. Perhaps it was his calm confidence. Perhaps it was the seriousness in his expression. Nathaniel found himself watching more closely than before. Jordan unfolded his essay and looked out across the audience. Somewhere near the back sat his mother, Monica Reed. The moment she saw her son step onto the stage, she smiled proudly. She had helped him practice reading the essay several times during the week. At least she thought she had heard the final version. Jordan cleared his throat. My essay is called The Man I Want to Be Like. The audience smiled. The title sounded sweet and familiar. Jordan began reading. My dad is not the richest man in town. Several parents chuckled softly. Nathaniel smiled too. He does not own tall buildings. He does not wear expensive suits. He does not have people taking pictures of him. More laughter drifted through the room. Jordan continued. But when my bicycle broke, he fixed it without asking for anything. When I got scared before my first baseball game, he stayed up with me until midnight helping me practice. When my mom worked late, he made dinner and helped me finish my homework. Nathaniel's smile slowly faded. He was not sure why. There was simply something about the boy's voice that felt strangely familiar. Jordan continued reading. He always says that being a man means showing up, even when nobody is watching. The auditorium grew quieter. My dad works with his hands. His shirts usually smell like motor oil. He says every problem has a solution if you are willing to work hard enough. A few people began glancing toward a man seated along the side wall. Marcus Hill shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His weathered work jacket and rough hands stood out among the crowd. Jordan smiled toward him before returning his attention to the paper. Monica's expression changed instantly. A faint line appeared across her forehead. This was not the version she remembered hearing at home. Nathaniel sat motionless. Something deep inside him felt unsettled. He could not explain why. Jordan kept reading. When people ask who my hero is, I always think about him. The room remained completely silent now. He taught me how to ride a bike. He taught me how to throw a baseball. He taught me that real strength is being kind when nobody expects it. Marcus lowered his head slightly. Several parents wiped tears from their eyes. Even teachers standing near the walls looked emotional. Jordan reached the final paragraph. His voice remained steady. One day, I hope I become the kind of man he is. He paused. Then he smiled. My dad's name is Marcus Hill. The silence that followed felt almost unreal. Not because the essay lacked beauty. It was beautiful. Not because Marcus looked unworthy. He looked deeply moved. The silence came from somewhere else. Nathaniel could not explain the strange feeling that tightened in his chest. Across the auditorium, Monica's face had gone pale. She stared at her son as though she had just realized something dangerous had been set in motion. Jordan folded his paper and stepped away from the microphone as applause slowly filled the room. Yet Nathaniel barely heard it. His attention remained fixed on the boy. on the shape of his smile, on the way he tilted his head while walking, on the familiar confidence in his stride. For reasons he could not understand, Nathaniel Brooks suddenly found himself unable to look away. The applause continued long after Jordan Reed left the stage, but Nathaniel Brooks barely heard any of it. Around him, parents smiled, teachers exchanged approving glances, and several audience members openly wiped tears from their eyes. The essay had touched everyone, yet Nathaniel remained strangely unsettled. He watched Jordan return to his seat beside Monica Reed. The boy's face glowed with pride, completely unaware that his words had created ripples extending far beyond the school auditorium. Nathaniel tried to focus on the remaining presentations, but his attention repeatedly drifted back toward Jordan. It was not simply the essay. It was the boy himself. There was something oddly familiar about him. The way he smiled, the way he carried himself, even the way he listened while other students spoke. None of it made sense. Nathaniel had never met the child before today, yet an uncomfortable feeling continued growing in the back of his mind. When the ceremony finally ended, families began gathering near the stage. Children ran toward parents. Cameras flashed. Teachers congratulated students. The room filled with excited conversations. Nathaniel stood and prepared to leave. Then he noticed Jordan, crossing the auditorium toward Marcus Hill. The boy threw his arms around the older man without hesitation. Marcus smiled warmly and placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder. The gesture looked natural, familiar, practiced through years of repetition. Nathaniel found himself watching the interaction longer than he intended. Nearby, Monica approached them carrying Jordan's school bag. For a brief moment, the three of them looked like a complete family. The sight should not have affected him, yet it did, deeply. Across the room, Monica suddenly looked up. Her eyes met Nathaniel's. The reaction was immediate. Surprise flashed across her face. Then concern. Nathaniel felt the strange sensation again. He knew that face, not from memory, not from business, but from somewhere he could not immediately place. Before he could process the thought, Monica quickly looked away and guided Jordan toward the exit. Nathaniel remained standing where he was. Something about the encounter felt unfinished. Mr. Brooks, the school principal approached with a smile. Thank you again for your support of our literacy initiative. Nathaniel forced himself back into the conversation. It is my pleasure. The children were excited to know you attended. Nathaniel nodded politely. Then he glanced toward the exit where Monica, Jordan, and Marcus had disappeared. The boy who read the essay, he said casually. Jordan Reed. Yes. The principal smiled. Wonderful kid. Nathaniel looked thoughtful. He certainly made an impression. He does that everywhere he goes. The principal laughed softly. Bright student. Kind heart. Everyone loves him. Nathaniel nodded. Yet curiosity continued pulling at him. And Marcus Hill? The principal's smile widened. Good man. Runs a repair garage a few miles from here. Volunteers at school events whenever we need help. Nathaniel listened carefully. Jordan seems very close to him. As close as any son could be. The principal answered without hesitation. The words lingered in Nathaniel's mind long after the conversation ended. As he exited the school building, late afternoon sunlight spilled across the parking lot. Parents loaded children into cars. Teachers carried decorations back inside. The event was over. Yet Nathaniel felt as though something had only just begun. He climbed into the back seat of his car while his driver pulled away from the curb. Through the window, he spotted Jordan again. The boy was laughing about something Marcus had said. Monica walked beside them, smiling despite what looked like lingering tension in her expression. For several seconds, Nathaniel watched them disappear into the crowd. That evening, high above downtown Chicago, Nathaniel stood inside his penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline. Usually, work occupied his thoughts. Quarterly reports, investment strategies, corporate acquisitions. Tonight, none of those things mattered. Instead, he found himself thinking about a 10-year-old boy he had met for less than an hour. The feeling irritated him. It made no logical sense. He poured himself a glass of water and walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. Far below, city lights stretched across the horizon. Yet his thoughts remained trapped inside the school auditorium. My dad is not the richest man in town. The sentence echoed in his memory. Then another image appeared. Jordan standing confidently at the podium. Jordan smiling. Jordan turning his head slightly while reading. Nathaniel suddenly froze. He had seen that gesture before. Not in Jordan. in himself. Years earlier, during countless interviews and public speeches, the realization unsettled him enough that he sat down immediately. Coincidences happened every day. People shared mannerisms, shared expressions, shared habits. There was no reason to read anything into it. Yet the feeling refused to disappear. Meanwhile, across the city, Monica sat alone at her kitchen table after Jordan had gone to bed. The house was quiet. Marcus had already left for the evening. A single lamp illuminated the room. In front of her sat a copy of Jordan's essay. She read it again slowly. Then she closed her eyes. The events of the afternoon replayed endlessly in her mind. Most parents would have felt only pride. Monica felt fear. Because Jordan had unknowingly taken the first step toward a truth she had spent 10 years trying to protect. And for the first time in a very long time, she found herself wondering whether that truth was finally catching up with all of them. The days following Family Appreciation Day should have returned to normal. For Monica Reed, they did not. Every morning, she woke with the same uneasy feeling in her chest. Every evening, she found herself replaying the event at Lincoln Elementary School. Jordan, meanwhile, seemed completely unaffected. He went to school, finished his homework, practiced baseball, and spent weekends helping Marcus Hill around the garage. To him, life continued exactly as it always had. Monica wished she could feel the same certainty. Late Wednesday afternoon, rain drifted gently across Chicago as Monica waited in her car outside Jordan's school. Children poured through the front doors carrying backpacks and jackets. A few minutes later, Jordan appeared. The moment he climbed into the passenger seat, Monica noticed his excitement. "Guess what happened today?" Jordan asked. Monica smiled. "What happened?" "My teacher wants to submit my essay to the district writing contest." Monica forced a smile. "That is wonderful." Jordan beamed. She said it was one of the best essays she has ever read. Monica looked away briefly. Pride mixed with anxiety in a way she could not explain. "You should be proud of yourself." Jordan nodded. "Marcus is going to be excited." The mention of Marcus brought a complicated expression to Monica's face. Jordan immediately noticed. "What is wrong?" Monica shook her head. "Nothing." Yet both knew that answer was not true. Jordan studied her quietly before turning toward the window. The conversation ended there, but the silence lingered during the drive home. Across the city, Nathaniel Brooks sat through an executive board meeting without hearing half of what was said. Financial projections filled giant screens. Department leaders discussed future investments. Normally, he would have led every conversation with precision. Today his attention wandered constantly. During a presentation about market expansion, his mind drifted back to the school auditorium. To Jordan. To Monica. To the strange feeling that refused to disappear. Finally, after the meeting ended, Nathaniel returned to his office overlooking downtown Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline beneath gray afternoon clouds. He loosened his tie and stared at the city below. Then he did something unusual. He called the principal of Lincoln Elementary School. 10 minutes later, he found himself discussing literacy grants and student programs. The conversation remained professional until Nathaniel casually asked about Jordan Reed. "Wonderful student," the principal replied. "One of our strongest readers." Nathaniel nodded. "He seems mature for his age." "Very mature." The principal laughed. "Sometimes he sounds older than the adults around him." Nathaniel smiled slightly. "I noticed that." Then something unexpected happened. "You know," the principal continued, "it is funny how much Jordan reminds me of someone." Nathaniel felt his attention sharpen. "Who?" "You, actually." Silence filled the line for a moment. Nathaniel's grip tightened slightly around the phone. "Me?" The confidence. The way he speaks in front of crowds. Even some of his facial expressions. Nathaniel stared through the window. "Interesting observation." The principal laughed softly. "Probably coincidence." Nathaniel ended the call a few minutes later, but the conversation stayed with him. Coincidence. The word no longer felt convincing. That evening, Nathaniel attended a charity reception hosted by several business leaders. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the ballroom while guests discussed investments and philanthropic projects. Ordinarily, this environment felt familiar, comfortable. Tonight, he found himself distracted. Halfway through the event, someone approached him carrying a tray of photographs from various community programs. Nathaniel politely accepted one. The image showed volunteers working at a youth sports fundraiser held months earlier. As he studied the picture, his breath caught slightly. Jordan stood near the center of the photograph. Nathaniel remembered seeing the image displayed earlier during the school event. This time, however, something else caught his attention. Jordan's posture, his smile, even the slight tilt of his head. The similarities felt impossible to ignore. Nathaniel lowered the photograph slowly. Logic told him he was imagining things. Emotion suggested otherwise. Meanwhile, at Marcus Hill's garage, Jordan spent the evening helping organize tools before closing time. The garage smelled faintly of oil and fresh rain drifting through the open bay doors. Marcus smiled while watching Jordan work. You know, most kids your age would rather be playing video games. Jordan grinned. Most kids do not get free mechanical advice from the smartest guy in Chicago. Marcus laughed. Flattery will not help you avoid sweeping the floor. Jordan grabbed the broom dramatically. Both laughed together. The scene felt natural, comfortable, like countless evenings before. Yet neither noticed Monica watching quietly from the office doorway. She smiled at the bond between them. Then her smile faded. Because for the first time in 10 years, she feared that everything Jordan believed about his life might soon change. Later that night, after Jordan was asleep, Monica sat alone on her porch listening to distant thunder roll across the city. Her phone rested beside her untouched. She had spent years protecting a truth she believed was necessary, a truth she convinced herself would never surface. Now, every instinct told her the walls around that secret were beginning to crack. Somewhere across Chicago, Nathaniel Brooks sat awake in his penthouse staring at an old photograph from the school event. And neither of them realized that the answers they feared were already moving steadily toward them. By Friday afternoon, Monica Reed had made a decision. She would keep Jordan away from any unnecessary attention until the district writing contest ended. The plan sounded reasonable in her mind. If she could simply move forward, perhaps the strange tension that had entered her life would eventually disappear. Yet deep down, she knew the problem was not the essay. The problem was that the past she had spent a decade burying seemed determined to find its way back into the present. The following day, autumn sunlight painted the city in shades of gold and amber. Jordan spent the morning helping Marcus Hill at the garage before a youth baseball clinic scheduled that afternoon. The garage was busy as usual. Customers came and went. Radios played softly in the background. Tools clinked against metal surfaces. To anyone watching, it looked like an ordinary Saturday. Jordan enjoyed every minute of it. "Hand me that wrench," Marcus said while working beneath the hood of an old pickup truck. Jordan quickly located it and passed it over. "You know," Marcus said with a smile, "you are getting pretty good at this." Jordan grinned proudly. "Maybe I will own a garage someday." Marcus laughed. "Or maybe you will become a writer after that essay." Jordan rolled his eyes dramatically. "Writing is harder than engines." Both laughed. From across the room, Monica watched them together. She felt grateful for Marcus. Throughout Jordan's life, Marcus had never tried to replace anyone. He had simply shown up. Every school concert, every baseball game, every difficult moment. He never asked for recognition. He never expected praise. He simply cared. That afternoon, the baseball clinic brought dozens of children and families to a local park. Volunteers distributed equipment while coaches organized drills across several fields. Jordan immediately ran toward his friends. Monica settled into a folding chair near the sidelines while Marcus joined other volunteers preparing activities. The atmosphere felt cheerful and relaxed. Then Monica noticed a black luxury SUV pull into the parking area. Her stomach tightened instantly. Nathaniel Brooks stepped out a moment later. He wore casual clothes instead of a business suit, yet he was immediately recognizable. Monica's pulse quickened. She had not expected to see him there. Nathaniel appeared equally surprised when he noticed her. For a brief moment, neither moved. Then one of the event organizers approached him enthusiastically. Monica realized why he was there. Brooks Capital had apparently sponsored part of the clinic. Nathaniel exchanged greetings with staff members before turning his attention toward the baseball fields. His gaze eventually found Jordan. Once again, he could not look away. Throughout the afternoon, Nathaniel found excuses to remain near the activities involving Jordan's age group. He spoke with coaches, helped distribute equipment, even joined a brief skills demonstration. None of it felt intentional, yet every path somehow led him back toward the same child. At one point, Jordan stepped up for a batting drill. The coach tossed several practice pitches. Jordan connected cleanly with nearly every swing. The final hit soared deep into the outfield. Applause erupted from nearby parents. Jordan smiled broadly. Nathaniel felt an unexpected sense of pride. The reaction confused him. He barely knew the boy. Why did every achievement feel personal? Later, while participants gathered for refreshments, Jordan accidentally dropped a stack of paper cups. They scattered across the grass. Without thinking, both Nathaniel and Jordan bent down simultaneously to pick them up. Their hands reached the same cup at exactly the same moment. Jordan looked up and smiled politely. "Thanks." Nathaniel smiled back. "Good swing out there." Jordan's eyes widened slightly. "You saw that? Hard to miss." Jordan laughed. "I got lucky." Nathaniel shook his head. "Luck helps once. Not every time." The exchange lasted less than a minute before Jordan ran off to rejoin his friends. Yet something about it stayed with Nathaniel. The boy's smile, his voice, even his manner of speaking. It all felt strangely familiar. Across the field, Monica witnessed the entire interaction. Anxiety tightened inside her chest. She knew she was being irrational. Nathaniel had no reason to suspect anything. Still, every conversation felt dangerous. Every coincidence felt like another crack forming in the wall she had built around the truth. As the event ended and families began leaving, Jordan climbed into Marcus's truck while Monica loaded equipment into the back seat. Before closing the passenger door, Jordan glanced across the parking lot. Nathaniel stood beside his vehicle speaking with organizers. "Mom," Jordan said. Monica looked up. "What?" Jordan pointed casually. "That businessman from school was here today." Monica followed his gaze. "I noticed." Jordan smiled thoughtfully. "He seems nice." Monica forced a smile. "I am sure he is." The truck pulled away moments later. Behind them, Nathaniel watched it disappear into traffic. He could not explain why the sight left him feeling disappointed. He only knew one thing. The more he learned about Jordan Reed, the less willing he became to ignore the questions growing inside his mind. And somewhere beneath the fading autumn sunlight, a truth hidden for 10 years moved one step closer to being uncovered. That night, long after the baseball clinic ended, Nathaniel Brooks sat alone in his penthouse office while the lights of Chicago shimmered beyond the glass. The questions surrounding Jordan refused to leave him. Yet somewhere beneath those questions, another memory had begun to awaken. A memory he had not allowed himself to revisit in years. Monica Reed. Before she became a mystery. Before she disappeared from his life. Before regret found a permanent home inside his heart. 12 years earlier, Nathaniel's world looked very different. Brooks' capital was growing rapidly, but it had not yet become the financial empire it would eventually become. Nathaniel was ambitious, disciplined, and determined to prove himself worthy of carrying his family's legacy. Every day was scheduled down to the minute. Every decision revolved around work. Then one rainy Thursday afternoon changed everything. He met Monica at a community literacy fundraiser hosted inside a public library on Chicago's South Side. Nathaniel had attended because Brooks Capital sponsored educational programs throughout the city. Monica was there as a volunteer teacher, helping children improve their reading skills. Their first conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Yet Nathaniel found himself thinking about her long after the event ended. Monica was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was intelligent without being arrogant, compassionate without seeking recognition. She spoke about children, education, and community programs with the same passion Nathaniel reserved for business strategy. Over the following months, their paths crossed repeatedly at charity events and community projects. Every conversation became easier than the last. Soon they began meeting. Outside volunteer activities. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners became long walks through the city. Before either of them realized it, they had fallen deeply in love. For Nathaniel, the relationship felt like discovering a missing part of himself. Monica brought balance into a life consumed by responsibility. She reminded him that success meant more than numbers on financial statements. She taught him to slow down long enough to appreciate ordinary moments. Saturday mornings at neighborhood cafes. Evening walks beside the Chicago River. Quiet conversations about dreams and fears. Monica saw the man beneath the CEO, and Nathaniel loved her for it. For a time, their future seemed certain. They talked about marriage, about building a family, about creating a life that combined both their worlds. Then reality began to intrude. Nathaniel's family viewed the relationship very differently. His mother, Eleanor Brooks, valued reputation, influence, and social expectations above almost everything else. Although she remained polite whenever Monica was present, her disapproval became increasingly difficult to ignore. Invitations stopped arriving. Family dinners became uncomfortable. Conversations turned cold. Nathaniel tried to shield Monica from it. He insisted none of it mattered. He promised they would build their own future regardless of anyone else's opinion. Monica wanted to believe him. Most days, she did. Yet the pressure continued growing. One evening, while attending a formal charity gala, Monica experienced the full weight of that disapproval. The ballroom sparkled beneath crystal chandeliers, while Chicago's most influential families filled the room. Monica wore a simple but elegant black gown. Nathaniel could not take his eyes off her. To him, she was the most remarkable person in attendance. Yet throughout the evening, subtle comments and dismissive attitudes followed them everywhere. Nothing openly cruel. Nothing obvious enough to challenge directly. Just enough to remind Monica she did not belong in their world. Later that night, after leaving the gala, Nathaniel found Monica standing beside the river. City lights reflected across the water while cold wind drifted through the streets. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Monica looked at him. "You did not do anything. My family did." Monica smiled sadly. "They are your family." Nathaniel stepped closer. "You are my future." The words hung between them. Honest, sincere, powerful. Monica wanted to believe that love alone could overcome every obstacle. For a while, she convinced herself it could. Several months later, Nathaniel proposed. It happened on a quiet spring evening overlooking Lake Michigan. No reporters, no photographers, no extravagant spectacle. Just two people deeply in love. Monica said yes before he even finished asking. For a brief moment, it felt like nothing could separate them. Their wedding took place 6 months later. Friends celebrated. Community leaders attended. Even Nathaniel's family appeared supportive on the surface. Photographs captured smiling faces and hopeful promises. Looking back, both of them would eventually realize those photographs preserved the happiest chapter of their lives. Because hidden beneath the joy were problems neither fully understood. Pressures already building. Secrets already forming. And far beyond the horizon of that beautiful day, a future waited that would test everything they believed about love, family, and the sacrifices people make in the name of protecting those they care about. The first year of marriage brought Nathaniel Brooks and Monica Brooks more happiness than either thought possible. They built routines that felt ordinary to everyone else, but precious to them. Sunday breakfasts at a small cafe near the river. Evening walks through quiet neighborhoods after long workdays. Movie nights on the couch when Chicago winters became too cold to venture outside. For a while, they successfully ignored the tension surrounding them. Nathaniel focused on expanding Brooks' capital. Monica continued teaching and volunteering in literacy programs throughout the city. Together, they created a life based on mutual respect, trust, and genuine affection. Yet as Brooks' capital grew, so did the expectations placed upon Nathaniel. Investors wanted more. Board members demanded more. The media paid closer attention. Most difficult of all, his family became increasingly determined to shape the future they believed he should have. Eleanor Brooks remained polite whenever Monica was present, but the distance between them never disappeared. Monica sensed it during family dinners, during holiday gatherings, during every carefully controlled conversation where certain topics were avoided. Nathaniel reassured her repeatedly. He insisted that none of it mattered. He told her they only needed each other. Monica wanted to believe him. Most days she did. Then one autumn morning changed everything. Monica stared at a small plastic test resting on the bathroom counter. Her hands trembled slightly. For several seconds, she simply stood there in silence. Then tears filled her eyes. Not tears of fear, tears of joy. She was pregnant. The news felt miraculous, exciting, life-changing. She spent the entire day trying to decide how to tell Nathaniel. That evening, after he returned from work, she handed him a small gift box. Nathaniel looked confused. "What is this?" Monica smiled through nervous excitement. "Open it." Inside the box rested a tiny pair of baby shoes. For several seconds Nathaniel simply stared. Then understanding appeared on his face. "Monica," his voice broke. "Are you serious?" She nodded. Nathaniel immediately wrapped his arms around her. Both laughed. Both cried. For that moment, the future looked brighter than ever before. They spent the following weeks discussing names, imagining family vacations, and planning a nursery. Nathaniel became protective in the way many first-time fathers do. He attended appointments whenever possible. He rearranged meetings. He spoke constantly about the future. Monica had never seen him happier. Unfortunately, not everyone shared their excitement. When Eleanor Brooks learned about the pregnancy, her reaction seemed surprisingly restrained. She offered congratulations. She smiled. She even sent flowers. Yet something about her response felt unnatural. Monica could not explain it. The warmth seemed rehearsed, controlled, like someone performing a role rather than expressing genuine happiness. Over time, small incidents began accumulating. Important messages failed to reach Nathaniel. Meetings unexpectedly kept him away from home. Family obligations seemed to multiply whenever Monica needed support. At first, she dismissed these events as coincidence. Nathaniel remained busy. Life remained complicated, yet the pattern slowly became impossible to ignore. One afternoon during her second trimester, Monica attended a routine medical appointment alone because Nathaniel had been called into an urgent board meeting. The appointment went well. The baby was healthy. Everything appeared normal. Still, she felt disappointed that Nathaniel could not be there. Later that evening, she learned something strange. The board meeting had never happened. Nathaniel had been told she rescheduled the appointment. Monica had been told he was unavailable. Neither story was true. It was the first moment she realized someone might be interfering with their communication. Nathaniel became furious when he discovered what happened. He promised to investigate. Yet every explanation led nowhere. Assistants blamed scheduling errors. Administrative staff apologized. Nobody accepted responsibility. Meanwhile, Brooks Capital entered one of the most demanding periods in company history. Nathaniel worked longer hours than ever before. Monica tried to remain supportive, but the growing distance worried her. Not because she doubted his love, because she feared external pressures were slowly pulling them apart. Then came the conversation she would never forget. It happened during a formal family gathering held at the Brooks estate several weeks later. Most guests had already left. Monica stepped onto a quiet terrace overlooking the gardens. Eleanor Brooks joined her moments afterward. For a while, neither spoke. Then Eleanor looked toward the horizon. "You are a good woman, Monica." The statement sounded sincere. Monica smiled politely. "Thank you." Eleanor remained silent for several seconds. Sometimes loving someone means understanding when you no longer belong in their world. Monica felt a chill despite the mild evening air. "I do not understand." Eleanor turned toward her. "One day you will." The conversation ended there. Yet those words followed Monica home, followed her through the remaining months of pregnancy, followed her into every quiet moment when uncertainty crept into her thoughts. She could not know then that forces were already moving behind the scenes. Decisions were being made without her knowledge, choices that would soon alter the course of multiple lives. And while Monica continued preparing for motherhood, believing love would ultimately protect her family, the foundation beneath that future was beginning to crack in ways neither she nor Nathaniel could yet see. As winter approached Chicago, Monica Brooks entered the final months of her pregnancy, carrying a growing sense of unease she could no longer ignore. The strange communication problems continued. Messages disappeared. Appointments became confused. Plans changed without explanation. Nathaniel remained loving and committed whenever they were together, but circumstances seemed determined to keep them apart. The situation frustrated both of them. Neither realized someone was carefully benefiting from every misunderstanding. One snowy afternoon, Monica sat in a small cafe reviewing paperwork for an upcoming literacy program. Her phone rang unexpectedly. The caller identification displayed Eleanor Brooks. Monica hesitated before answering. "Hello." Eleanor's voice sounded calm and controlled. "Monica, I was hoping we could talk." Monica remained cautious. "About what?" "About your future." An hour later, they sat across from each other in a private corner of the cafe. Outside, snowflakes drifted through the gray afternoon sky. Inside, the atmosphere felt strangely formal. Eleanor folded her hands neatly on the table. "You love Nathaniel." Monica nodded immediately. "Of course I do." "Then listen carefully." Something in Eleanor's tone made Monica uncomfortable. "I am listening." Eleanor looked directly into her eyes. "Nathaniel's company is preparing for the most important merger in its history. Investors are watching everything. The board is watching everything. His future depends on stability. Monica frowned. What does that have to do with me? Eleanor remained silent for a moment. More than you realize. The conversation continued for nearly an hour. Eleanor never raised her voice. She never made threats. Yet every sentence carried the same message. Monica was becoming an obstacle to the future Nathaniel's family envisioned. Monica left the meeting shaken. She told herself Eleanor was simply expressing personal opinions. Still, the encounter left scars. Days later, another misunderstanding occurred. Nathaniel missed an important medical appointment he had promised to attend. Monica felt hurt. Nathaniel felt confused. Both insisted they had communicated clearly. Neither understood how the message had once again disappeared. Tension began replacing trust. Small arguments followed. Not dramatic arguments. Painful ones. The kind that happen when two people love each other but feel increasingly disconnected. Then came the day that changed everything. Monica returned home one afternoon to find an envelope waiting inside her mailbox. There was no return address. Inside, she discovered copies of photographs showing Nathaniel meeting with a woman she did not recognize. The images appeared intimate, personal, damaging. Monica stared at them for a long time. Her first instinct was disbelief. Nathaniel had never given her reason to doubt him. Yet after months of confusion and distance, uncertainty had already taken root. When Nathaniel arrived home that evening, Monica confronted him. He looked genuinely shocked. I have never seen these photographs before. Monica searched his face for answers, then explained them. Nathaniel studied the images. These were taken during business meetings. Business meetings? She represents an investment group. Nathaniel's frustration grew. Someone wants you to believe something that is not true. Monica wanted to trust him. Part of her did. Yet exhaustion and months of emotional strain clouded everything. Their conversation ended without resolution. Over the following weeks, the distance between them widened. Calls became shorter. Conversations became careful. The joy they once shared felt buried beneath confusion neither could explain. Then, one freezing January morning, Monica received another unexpected visit from Eleanor Brooks. This time the older woman arrived alone at Monica's apartment. Snow covered the streets outside. Monica answered the door cautiously. Eleanor looked unusually serious. May I come in? Monica reluctantly agreed. What followed became the most difficult conversation of her life. Eleanor spoke about Nathaniel's future, about the pressures surrounding Brooks Capital, about opportunities that would disappear if public scandals emerged. Then she presented Monica with a proposal. Financial support, relocation assistance, a fresh start somewhere else. In exchange, Monica would leave Chicago quietly and permanently. Monica stared at her in disbelief. You want me to leave my husband? Eleanor's expression remained unchanged. I want everyone involved to have the best possible future. Tears filled Monica's eyes. Nathaniel would never agree to this. Eleanor looked away briefly before answering. Some decisions must be made before people understand they are necessary. Monica immediately refused. Eleanor left shortly afterward. Yet the damage had already been done. For the first time, Monica fully understood the extent of the opposition surrounding her marriage. Several days later, events moved quickly. More misunderstandings, more missing messages, more confusion. Then one evening, Monica received information suggesting Nathaniel no longer wanted the marriage to continue. The message appeared genuine. The details seemed convincing. Heartbroken and emotionally exhausted, she believed it. What Monica did not know was that Nathaniel received an entirely different story at nearly the same moment. A story suggesting Monica had chosen to leave him. By the time either realized something was terribly wrong, circumstances had already begun pulling them in opposite directions. And as snow continued falling across Chicago, two people who still loved each other found themselves standing at the edge of a separation neither truly wanted, while the greatest secret of all remained safely hidden beneath Monica's heart. Monica left Chicago 3 weeks later. To the outside world, the decision appeared sudden, even reckless. Only she knew how much pain stood behind it. She rented a modest apartment nearly 200 miles away in a small Illinois town where nobody recognized the Brooks name. The pregnancy had entered its final weeks. Every day felt heavier emotionally and physically. Yet despite everything that had happened, one thought remained constant. She still loved Nathaniel. That truth never changed. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Nathaniel struggled to understand how his life had unraveled so quickly. The messages he received painted a clear picture. Monica no longer wanted contact. Monica wanted distance. Monica had chosen another future. None of it felt right. Yet every attempt to reach her failed. Phone numbers were disconnected. Emails went unanswered. Letters disappeared without response. Eventually, even his closest friends encouraged him to move forward. Work became his refuge. Brooks Capital continued expanding. New acquisitions demanded attention. Investors expected leadership. Outwardly, Nathaniel appeared stronger than ever. Privately, he carried a loss he never fully understood. Then, during a snowy February morning, Monica gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The moment she first held him, every fear and uncertainty disappeared. The nurse placed the infant gently into her arms. Tears streamed down Monica's face. The child opened his eyes briefly before falling asleep against her chest. In that instant, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever sacrifices she had made, she would never regret protecting her son. She named him Jordan Reed. The surname was not chosen out of anger. It was chosen out of necessity. Monica believed Jordan deserved a peaceful childhood far away from conflict, confusion, and the powerful forces that had already altered so many lives. During those early months, money became a constant concern. Monica worked whenever possible while caring for a newborn. Sleep became a luxury. Every dollar mattered. Some evenings, she sat alone after Jordan finally fell asleep, staring at unpaid bills while wondering how she would manage another month. Those were the moments when Marcus Hill entered their lives. Marcus owned a small repair garage near the apartment complex where Monica lived. Their first conversation happened because her aging car refused to start in a grocery store parking lot. Marcus fixed the problem in less than 20 minutes. When Monica tried to apologize for interrupting his day, he simply smiled and said, "Everybody needs help sometimes." That kindness stayed with her. Over time, their paths crossed again. Marcus never pushed, never asked personal questions, never offered sympathy she did not request. He simply helped when help was needed. When Jordan became sick with a seasonal virus, Marcus drove them to an urgent care clinic. When Monica needed someone to watch Jordan during an important work meeting, Marcus volunteered without hesitation. When winter storms left neighborhoods buried beneath snow, Marcus checked on elderly residents and carried groceries for people who could not manage alone. He treated everyone with the same quiet generosity. Years passed. Jordan grew from a toddler into an energetic little boy. Throughout that time, Marcus became one of the most important people in his life. Not because anyone planned it, because he consistently showed up. Birthday parties, school events, little league practices. Marcus was there. He never tried to replace anyone. He never called himself Jordan's father. Yet Jordan naturally began viewing him as one. Monica noticed it gradually. The way Jordan's face brightened whenever Marcus arrived. The way he repeated Marcus's advice. The way he trusted him completely. At first, Monica worried about what it might mean. Eventually, she realized something important. Love did not always arrive in the form people expected. Sometimes it arrived carrying a toolbox and wearing work boots. Back in Chicago, Nathaniel occasionally searched for answers he never found. Every few years, he hired investigators to locate Monica. Every search ended the same way. Dead ends. Missing records. Incomplete information. Eventually, he stopped looking, convincing himself there was nothing left to discover. Yet certain memories refused to fade. A laugh. A promise. A future that never happened. One autumn afternoon, nearly 10 years after Monica left Chicago, Marcus stood beside Jordan during a youth baseball game. Jordan hit a line, drive into center field, and sprinted toward first base. Marcus cheered louder than anyone. Monica watched from the stands and smiled. It was a simple moment. Ordinary. Beautiful. None of them realized that hundreds of miles away, the man who shared Jordan's smile, mannerisms, and determination was unknowingly thinking about the family he had lost. Fate had kept their worlds separate for a decade, but the distance between them was about to become much smaller. Because a school essay, written by an honest 10-year-old boy, had already set events into motion that none of them could stop. The Monday after the district writing contest announcement, Nathaniel Brooks arrived at Brooks Capital earlier than usual. The city was still waking up beneath a pale autumn sunrise, but he had barely slept. Jordan Reed's essay continued replaying in his mind. The strange familiarity, the unanswered questions, the growing feeling that an important piece of his past remained hidden just beyond reach. For the first time in years, Nathaniel decided to stop dismissing his instincts. If there was nothing unusual, he would finally have peace of mind. If there was something more, he needed to know. He began with the only place connected to everything, his past. Late that afternoon, Nathaniel drove to the Brooks family estate, a sprawling property he rarely visited except for holidays and formal gatherings. The house looked unchanged. Perfect gardens, immaculate stone pathways, tall windows reflecting the fading sunlight. Yet stepping inside felt different now. Memories lingered everywhere. Memories of Monica. Memories of arguments. Memories of questions he had never answered. Eleanor Brooks greeted him warmly in the main sitting room. "This is a surprise." Nathaniel smiled politely. "I had some free time." His mother seemed pleased. They spoke briefly about business, charitable foundations, and family acquaintances. Then Nathaniel casually shifted the conversation. "I was thinking about Monica recently." The change was immediate. Eleanor's expression remained composed, but something flickered behind her eyes. "That was a long time ago." "It was." Nathaniel nodded. "Do you ever wonder what really happened?" Eleanor looked away momentarily. "Some people choose different paths." "That is not an answer." Silence settled between them. Eleanor stood and crossed toward the window. "You spent years rebuilding your life." "Because I believed I had no choice." Nathaniel watched her carefully. "Sometimes I wonder if I knew the entire story." Eleanor remained quiet. Eventually, she changed the subject. The conversation ended shortly afterward, but Nathaniel left feeling less certain than ever. Something about her reaction felt wrong. That evening, unable to shake the feeling, he wandered into a section of the estate rarely used anymore. Old storage rooms occupied part of the lower level. Decades of family records, photographs, and forgotten possessions filled shelves and filing cabinets. Nathaniel had not entered the area in years. He was not looking for anything specific. At least that was what he told himself. An hour later, dust covered his sleeves as he sorted through boxes. Most contained financial documents and family memorabilia. Then he discovered a small archive cabinet labeled with old administrative records from the period surrounding his marriage. Curiosity kept him searching. Inside one drawer sat several unopened folders. Most appeared ordinary. One did not. The folder contained correspondence records. At first, Nathaniel nearly closed it. Then he noticed a familiar name. Monica Brooks. His pulse quickened. He opened the folder slowly. Inside were copies of letters. Dozens of them. Some addressed to Monica. Others addressed to him. Several carried dates from the months leading up to their separation. Nathaniel stared in disbelief. He immediately recognized Monica's handwriting. The first letter began simply. "Nathaniel, I have been trying to reach you all week. The appointment went well. The baby is healthy. I wish you had been there." His hands trembled slightly. He turned to another letter. Then another. Every page told the same story. Monica had written repeatedly. She had not disappeared without explanation. She had not cut off communication. She had been trying desperately to reach him. Nathaniel continued reading. Several letters had never been mailed. Others contained notes indicating they had been intercepted through administrative processing. Some included forwarding instructions that were never completed. The deeper he searched, the worse it became. A growing picture emerged. Messages had been blocked. Information had been altered. Communication had been manipulated. None of it looked accidental. Nathaniel sat down heavily in a nearby chair. His mind raced through memories he had spent 10 years accepting as fact. Monica leaving. Monica choosing another life. Monica abandoning their future. Suddenly, every assumption seemed uncertain. Then he found the final letter. The envelope had never been opened. His name remained written across the front in Monica's handwriting, dated just weeks before Jordan's birth. With trembling fingers, Nathaniel unfolded the pages. As he read, the room seemed to disappear around him. Monica described feeling isolated and confused. She described believing Nathaniel no longer wanted their marriage. Most importantly, she described their child, their son. Nathaniel stopped reading. His breath caught. He looked back at the sentence. Then read it again. There could be no misunderstanding. Monica had clearly written about the baby she was carrying. Their son. For several moments, he simply stared at the page. Jordan's face flashed through his memory. The smile. The mannerisms. The familiar expressions. Suddenly, every strange feeling made horrifying sense. Nathaniel closed his eyes. 10 years. 10 years of birthdays. 10 years of first days of school. 10 years of baseball games, holidays, conversations, and memories he had never shared. Somewhere across Chicago, a 10-year-old boy had unknowingly revealed a truth hidden for an entire decade. And now, holding a stack of forgotten letters in his hands, Nathaniel Brooks realized that the biggest loss of his life had never been the marriage that ended. It was the son he never knew existed. Nathaniel Brooks did not leave the estate until nearly midnight. The unopened letters remained beside him in a leather portfolio as he drove back toward downtown Chicago. Every traffic light felt slower than usual. Every mile felt heavier. For 10 years, he had believed a version of events that now appeared built upon misunderstandings, manipulation, and silence. Yet one truth stood above everything else. Somewhere in the city lived a 10-year-old boy who might be his son. Sleep was impossible that night. Nathaniel sat in his office overlooking the skyline while Monica's letters covered the desk in front of him. He read them repeatedly. Each page revealed another piece of a story he had never been allowed to hear. Monica had never stopped loving him. She had never intentionally disappeared. She had never tried to keep him away. The realization brought both relief and heartbreak. Relief because the woman he once loved had not betrayed him. Heartbreak because 10 years had already passed. By sunrise, Nathaniel made a decision. He needed certainty, not assumptions, not suspicions. Certainty. The following morning, he contacted a trusted attorney who had worked with him for years. Nathaniel shared only the information necessary. The attorney listened carefully before offering practical advice. Before you confront anyone, you need facts. Nathaniel nodded. I agree. Over the next several days, records were quietly reviewed. Old documents were recovered. Archived files were examined. The process moved slowly, but every discovery pointed in the same direction. Monica's timeline matched perfectly. The dates matched. The circumstances matched. Nothing contradicted the possibility that Jordan was his biological son. Meanwhile, life continued normally for Monica and Jordan. Neither knew the truth was moving closer. Jordan remained focused on school, baseball, and preparing for the district writing competition. One afternoon, he sat at the kitchen table working on homework while Monica prepared dinner nearby. Mom, Jordan asked. Yes. Have you ever wondered what makes someone a father? Monica paused. The question caught her off guard. Why do you ask? Jordan shrugged. We talked about families in class today. Monica smiled softly. What do you think makes someone a father? Jordan thought carefully. Someone who shows up. The answer landed heavily in Monica's heart. She glanced toward him and smiled. That is a pretty good answer. Jordan returned to his homework, unaware of the emotions behind her expression. Across town, Marcus Hill closed his garage for the evening. He had noticed Monica seemed more distracted than usual in recent weeks. Although she insisted everything was fine, Marcus knew her well enough to recognize when she was worried. As they locked up the building, he finally asked, Something has been bothering you. Monica sighed. Maybe. Marcus waited patiently. Ever since the school event, I keep feeling like something is changing. Marcus nodded slowly. You think it has something to do with Nathaniel Brooks? Monica looked surprised. How did you know? Marcus smiled faintly. Because every time his name comes up, you get that same look. Monica laughed despite herself. Then her expression softened. I do not know what is happening. I only know I am afraid of what comes next. Marcus looked thoughtful. Sometimes the truth shows up whether we invite it or not. Those words stayed with Monica long after she returned home. 3 days later, Nathaniel received the final report from his attorney. The document contained years of recovered information, timelines, and supporting records. Nathaniel read every page carefully. When he reached the final section, he closed the folder and sat quietly for several minutes. There was no longer any reasonable doubt in his mind. Yet one step remained, a step he approached with equal parts hope and fear. Arrangements were made discreetly and legally through information already available from historical medical records connected to the recovered documentation. The waiting period felt endless. Nathaniel continued working during the day, but concentration became increasingly difficult. Every meeting reminded him of years he could never recover. Every conversation seemed insignificant compared to the possibility that he had a son he never knew. Finally, the call arrived. Nathaniel answered immediately. His attorney's voice remained calm and professional. The results have been confirmed. Nathaniel closed his eyes, and a brief pause followed. Jordan Reed is your biological son. Silence filled the room. Nathaniel had prepared himself for many possibilities. Yet hearing the words aloud affected him more deeply than expected. He turned toward the window overlooking Chicago. Somewhere beyond those buildings was a boy who loved baseball, wrote award-winning essays, and smiled exactly the way Nathaniel had smiled as a child. A boy who believed another man was his father because another man had been there for every important moment. Nathaniel felt no anger toward Marcus, only gratitude. Gratitude mixed with overwhelming sadness. 10 years. 10 years he could never get back. Yet for the first time in a decade, he also felt something else. Hope. Because the truth was no longer hidden. And now came the most difficult question of all. How do you introduce yourself to a son who never knew you existed without destroying the life he already loves? For nearly a week after receiving confirmation about Jordan, Nathaniel Brooks wrestled with the same question every waking hour. He knew the truth now. He knew Jordan was his son. But knowledge alone did not tell him what to do next. Every possible action seemed capable of causing pain. Every delay felt equally wrong. Eventually, he reached one conclusion. Before speaking to Jordan, he needed to speak to the man who had spent 10 years being there when he could not. On a cold Thursday afternoon, Nathaniel drove to Marcus Hill's repair garage. The building looked exactly as he remembered from the baseball clinic and school events. Modest, practical, honest. Vehicles occupied several service bays while customers came and went throughout the day. Nathaniel parked across the street and sat inside his car for several moments. This meeting felt more intimidating than any boardroom negotiation he had ever faced. Finally, he stepped outside and crossed the street. The sound of tools echoed from inside the garage. Mechanics moved between vehicles while classic rock played softly from an old radio. Near the back, Marcus stood beside a pickup truck discussing repairs with a customer. When their eyes met, Marcus immediately seemed to understand why Nathaniel had come. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Marcus thanked the customer, and then wiped his hands with a clean cloth. "Mr. Brooks." Nathaniel nodded. "Marcus." Marcus gestured toward a small office near the rear of the garage. "We should probably talk somewhere quieter." Minutes later, they sat across from each other inside the office. The room contained little more than a desk, 2 chairs, and photographs of local baseball teams Marcus had sponsored over the years. Nathaniel noticed Jordan appeared in several of them. The sight tightened something inside his chest. Marcus followed his gaze. He was 8 in that one. Nathaniel looked carefully at the photograph. Jordan grinned proudly while holding a baseball trophy. Marcus stood beside him. "He looks happy." Marcus smiled softly. "He usually is." Silence followed. Finally, Nathaniel took a slow breath. "I know." Marcus did not ask what he meant. "How long?" Nathaniel asked quietly. Marcus leaned back slightly. "How long have I known?" Nathaniel nodded. Marcus looked toward the photographs. "Almost from the beginning." Nathaniel absorbed the answer. Strangely, he felt no anger. Only curiosity. "Why did you never tell him?" Marcus smiled sadly. "Because he already had enough confusion in his life." Nathaniel lowered his eyes. "And because you thought I did not deserve to know." Marcus shook his head immediately. "No." Nathaniel looked surprised. Marcus continued. "Because Monica believed you abandoned her." The words landed heavily. Nathaniel nodded slowly. "She believed I abandoned her. I believed she abandoned me." Marcus stared at him for several seconds. "Then somebody lied to both of you." Nathaniel looked away. "That is exactly what happened." For the next hour, they shared pieces of a story neither had fully understood. Nathaniel explained the letters he discovered, the blocked messages, the hidden records. Marcus listened carefully without interruption. When Nathaniel finished, Marcus sat quietly for a long time. "Monica never stopped loving you," he finally said. Nathaniel closed his eyes briefly. Hearing those words hurt more than he expected. "I know." Marcus nodded. "I think part of her always hoped the truth would come out someday." Nathaniel looked around the office. Again, more photographs, more memories, moments he had missed. "You raised him." Marcus smiled faintly. "I helped raise him." "That is more than I did." Marcus leaned forward. "Do not do that." Nathaniel looked confused. Marcus continued. "You lost 10 years. That is tragic. But do not punish yourself for something you did not know." Nathaniel remained silent. Marcus's expression softened. Jordan does not need another person feeling guilty. He needs people who love him. Those words stayed with Nathaniel. For the first time since learning the truth, someone had spoken about Jordan's future rather than his past. As the conversation continued, Nathaniel realized something important. Marcus was not his rival. He was not an obstacle. He was a good man who had stepped forward when a child needed guidance. Instead of resentment, Nathaniel felt gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. Marcus looked surprised. "For what?" Nathaniel glanced toward the photographs again. "For showing up." Neither man spoke for several seconds. Then Marcus smiled. "He is a good kid." Nathaniel nodded. "He is." Eventually, the conversation shifted toward what came next. Neither wanted to rush Jordan into a life-changing revelation. Neither wanted to create fear or confusion. They agreed on one thing immediately. Jordan's emotional well-being mattered more than anyone's pride. As evening approached, Nathaniel stood and prepared to leave. Before reaching the door, he stopped. "Does he know anything?" Marcus shook his head. "Not yet." Nathaniel nodded thoughtfully. "Then we do this carefully." Marcus stood as well. "For Jordan." "For Jordan," Nathaniel agreed. Outside, the sun was beginning to set over Chicago. As Nathaniel walked back toward his car, he felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Not because the situation was easy. Not because the years could be recovered. But because for the first time since discovering the truth, he knew he was not facing the future alone. And somewhere nearby, completely unaware that two men had just changed the course of his life, Jordan Reed was finishing homework at the kitchen table, preparing for another ordinary evening that would soon become anything but ordinary. 2 days passed before Monica Reed learned that Nathaniel Brooks had spoken with Marcus. The news arrived unexpectedly on a quiet Saturday morning. Jordan had left early for a baseball practice while Monica and Marcus organized supplies for an upcoming community fundraiser. The garage was unusually calm. Only a few vehicles occupied the service bays. Monica noticed Marcus seemed distracted. Eventually, she set down a clipboard and looked at him directly. Something happened. Marcus hesitated. "Nathaniel came to see me." The words immediately drained color from Monica's face. For several seconds, she could not respond. "When?" she finally asked. "A couple of days ago." Monica lowered herself into a chair. Her heartbeat accelerated. "Why?" Marcus sat across from her. "Because he knows." Silence filled the room. Monica stared at him. She already understood exactly what he meant. "He knows about Jordan." Marcus nodded. Monica closed her eyes. For years she had imagined this moment. Sometimes she feared it. Sometimes she hoped for it. Yet now that it had finally arrived, she felt completely unprepared. How? Marcus carefully explained everything Nathaniel had discovered. The letters, the missing records, the hidden communications, the confirmation that Jordan was his son. Monica listened without interruption. As Marcus spoke, emotions she had buried for a decade slowly resurfaced. Hurt, relief, regret, sadness, love. By the time he finished, tears filled her eyes. "I spent 10 years believing he abandoned us." Marcus nodded gently. "And he spent 10 years believing you abandoned him." Monica looked away. The tragedy of it suddenly felt overwhelming. So many years. So many missed opportunities. All built upon lies neither of them created. "What does he want?" she asked quietly. Marcus answered honestly. "He wants to know his son." Monica wiped her eyes. "Of course he does." Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Marcus leaned forward. "Monica, he never said a negative word about you." She looked surprised. Marcus continued. "Not once." Something softened inside her. For years she had imagined Nathaniel becoming angry, resentful, accusatory. Instead, the man Marcus described sounded heartbroken rather than hostile. That realization changed everything. Later that afternoon, Monica sat alone at a small park while Jordan practiced baseball nearby. Children laughed across the field. Coaches called instructions. Parents watched from folding chairs. Yet Monica barely noticed any of it. Her thoughts remained trapped in the past. She remembered Nathaniel holding her hand during those first months of pregnancy. She remembered the excitement in his voice when they discussed baby names. She remembered the promises they made before everything fell apart. For the first time in 10 years, she allowed herself to consider a possibility she had long rejected. What if Nathaniel had never stopped loving them either? Across the field, Jordan successfully stole second base and celebrated with his teammates. Monica smiled despite her emotions. Everything came back to him. Every decision, every sacrifice, every fear. Whatever happened next needed to protect Jordan above all else. That evening, after Jordan went to bed, a message arrived on Monica's phone from an unfamiliar number. Her hands trembled slightly before she opened it. The message was brief. Monica, I understand if you never want to speak to me again. But there are things we both deserve to know. More importantly, there are things Jordan deserves to know. I am willing to meet whenever you are ready. Nathaniel. Monica stared at the screen for a long time. No anger. No demands. No accusations. Just an invitation. She read the message again. Then again. Finally, she set the phone down and walked to the window. Outside, autumn leaves drifted beneath streetlights while the neighborhood settled into silence. 10 years ago, she would have answered immediately. 10 years ago, she still believed life followed predictable paths. Now everything felt more complicated. The following morning, Jordan joined Marcus at the garage while Monica remained home. She needed time to think. Hours passed. She made coffee and never drank it. She opened books and never read them. Every memory seemed connected to Nathaniel. Every future possibility seemed uncertain. By late afternoon, she realized something important. Avoiding the conversation would not protect Jordan. The truth already existed. It would not disappear simply because she wished it away. That evening, she finally picked up her phone and typed a response. Only one sentence. We should talk. Less than a minute later, Nathaniel replied. Thank you. The meeting was scheduled for the following evening at a quiet restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. Neutral ground. Private. Safe. As Monica placed her phone on the table, she felt a mixture of fear and anticipation unlike anything she had experienced in years. Meanwhile, across the city, Nathaniel stared at her message with equal emotion. After 10 years of silence, they were finally going to sit across from each other again. Neither knew exactly what would be said. Neither knew whether old wounds could heal. But both understood one thing. The conversation they were about to have would determine not only their future, but also the future of the boy whose simple school essay had finally brought the truth into the light. The following evening arrived with the kind of quiet autumn rain that softened the lights along the Chicago River. Monica Reed entered the restaurant a few minutes early, her heart racing despite everything she had accomplished over the past decade. She had prepared herself for this meeting countless times in her imagination, yet none of those imagined conversations felt real now. Then she saw him. Nathaniel Brooks stood as she approached the table. For a moment, neither spoke. 10 years of separation existed between them, yet the silence felt strangely familiar. Hello, Monica, Nathaniel said softly. Hello, Nathaniel. They sat down. The first few minutes felt awkward, careful, almost fragile. Then Nathaniel reached into a portfolio and placed several letters on the table. Monica recognized them immediately. Her letters. The ones she thought had been ignored. Tears filled her eyes before she even touched them. You never received these? She whispered. Nathaniel shook his head. Not until recently. Monica looked down at the pages. I thought you stopped loving me. Nathaniel's expression tightened with emotion. I thought the same thing about you. The realization hurt all over again. Two people who had loved each other deeply had lost 10 years because of manipulation, assumptions, and silence. Yet neither focused on blame. They focused on understanding. For hours they talked. About the past. About the mistakes they never had the chance to correct. About Jordan. Most importantly, they talked about the future. I do not want to disrupt his life, Nathaniel said. Marcus has been there every day. I respect that. Monica nodded. He loves Jordan. I know. Nathaniel smiled faintly. And Jordan loves him. Monica looked at him carefully. What do you want? Nathaniel answered immediately. A chance. Nothing more. Nothing less. Just a chance to know my son. The sincerity in his voice removed the last of her doubts. This was not about pride. It was not about ownership. It was about a father who had discovered the truth too late, but still hoped there was time left to build something meaningful. 1 week later, after careful conversations with Marcus and guidance from a family counselor, they decided it was time. The meeting took place on a Saturday afternoon at the same baseball field where Jordan had spent countless weekends. Familiar surroundings felt important. Safe. Comfortable. Jordan arrived expecting nothing unusual. He carried his baseball glove beneath one arm and smiled when he saw Marcus waiting near the bleachers. Then he noticed Monica standing beside Nathaniel. His expression shifted to curiosity. What is going on? He asked. Monica knelt beside him. Her voice trembled slightly. There is something important we need to tell you. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Questions came first. Then more questions. Jordan listened carefully as the adults explained the truth in language appropriate for his age. Nobody blamed anyone. Nobody spoke with anger. They simply explained what had happened. When they finished, Jordan sat quietly for several moments. Finally, he looked at Nathaniel. "So you are my biological father?" Nathaniel nodded. "Yes." Jordan looked down at the grass. "And you did not know about me?" "No." Nathaniel's voice broke slightly. "If I had known, I would have been there." Silence followed. Then Jordan asked the question everyone feared most. "Does that mean Marcus is not my dad anymore?" Marcus immediately stepped forward. "No, buddy." Jordan looked at him. Marcus smiled warmly. "Nobody is taking anybody's place." Jordan studied all three adults. Then something remarkable happened. The tension faded from his face. Children often understand emotional truths more clearly than adults. "So I get more people who care about me?" Monica laughed through tears. Nathaniel smiled. Marcus shook his head with amusement. "That is one way to look at it." Jordan grinned. "Sounds pretty good to me." The weeks that followed were not perfect. Adjustments rarely are. There were difficult conversations, emotional moments, new routines to create. Yet every step moved forward instead of backward. Nathaniel attended baseball games, helped with school projects, learned Jordan's favorite foods, favorite movies, and favorite dreams. He could not recover the first 10 years, but he refused to waste the years still ahead. Several months later, Jordan won the district writing competition. During the awards ceremony, families gathered throughout the auditorium. When Jordan stepped onto the stage, he looked toward the audience and smiled. Monica sat beside Marcus. Nathaniel sat beside them. Three adults connected by an extraordinary journey. After accepting his award, Jordan read a short speech. Near the end, he paused and looked toward his family. "I used to think family was simple," he said. "Now I know family is the people who love you, tell you the truth, and never stop showing up." Applause filled the room. Monica wiped away tears. Marcus smiled proudly. Nathaniel felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. The essay that began as a simple school assignment had uncovered a hidden truth, repaired broken connections, and reunited a family separated by a decade of misunderstanding. And as the audience rose to its feet, Jordan stood beneath the stage lights, surrounded not by the family he expected to have, but by the family he was always meant to find.